Hi, everyone. Today, I would like to talk about praise. Praise and praising our children has become something that is actually controversial. It's become something that a lot of people actually share is something that's better not to do with our children, right? Now, what's interesting about this is that we praise people, we praise children to build their self-confidence, right? We think that we praise children to let them know what they're doing right. And so that they know, to keep doing that thing the same way in the future, right? We praise our children to make them feel good about themselves. We praise them because we believe that they'll feel happy, that they'll feel, secure, that they'll feel strong and empowered when they hear good things said about them. And it's true. It's true. When we are praised or we give our children praise, we absolutely create a space where our children are going to feel good. But here's the question: how long does it last for? And this is the question around praise. This is why praise is being questioned, why praise is now something that many people are saying, hey, maybe we shouldn't be praising our children that much. At the same time, though, when our child does something correctly, they do something kind, they master something that was really hard for them, what do we do? Do we just let it go unnoticed? Do we not acknowledge it and let them know, what we feel and how proud we are of them and what a wonderful job they did? So let's reframe. Let's talk about praise. Let's understand it in a deep way and learn what we can do, what is positive. So one of the issues that is taken up when we talk about praise is this idea that if we praise our children, even if it's for the sake of building their self-confidence, for building up who they are, for letting them know that the way that they behaved or the words that they chose are all awesome. The challenge that many people have with praise is that A, children will now start doing all of these kind, good, wholehearted things just for the sake of the praise. B, what happens if there is no praise, right? If a child does something great and then they don't get any praise, are they going to want to do it again? And C, what happens when a child grows up to be an adult and they are looking for praise? What does that mean? They're looking for external validation. They're looking for someone to pat them on the back and let them know that they did a good job. Now, is there anything actually wrong with that? If we think about it, don't all human beings need praise? Don't you need praise? I know I like praise. I like to be acknowledged and seen and heard. I like for people to notice when I do something that was hard for me, or notice when I do something right. Like, I like to hear the good things about me. And we also, as parents, many times we want to share those things with our children. We want them to know, all the good that we feel about them. So when we're talking about, I don't like using the word bad or negative, right? But the downside of praise, the downside is when we praise our child for who they are. And this is a huge distinguishment to make, right? To tell your child, you are a good girl. You are such a good listener, right? You are so good at sports. You are so beautiful. You're so smart. You're so good at school. Inadvertently tells your child that they are these things. Now, what if any of those things get taken away, right? What if in a moment a child isn't a good listener? What are they going to think about themselves? What if your child, you say, wow, you're so good at football, but then there's an accident and they can't play football? Then what happens, right? What if you as a parent and a child have a disagreement? You have a disagreement, and in that moment, you don't believe, from your perspective, your child is not a good listener. They are not a good child. They are being really difficult. What is now the child going to believe about themselves when they don't have the praise from their parent? right? Think back to when you were growing up. There came a point in your life where maybe it was really young, but certainly when you got older, if you didn't have the space to be that way when you were young, where you were like, hey, I can't do and be everything everyone wants me to be and do, because then I'm not spending enough time on being and doing myself, right? If I'm so worried and wrapped up in being who my parents want me to be, who my teacher thinks I am, and my validation of who I am is coming from the praise that they give me when I'm like that, then what happens when I disagree with a parent, when I disagree with a teacher, when I disagree with someone who has been giving me that praise and now their praise stopped? It can be like a crisis situation for a child, really like a crisis situation, right? And so this is the issue that has come up around this concept of praise. Now it's interesting because I've actually been reading a lot about how to build optimism in children, and one thing that I've understood is that in the 90s, what became really relevant in school systems is to give children a lot of praise for the sake of building their self-confidence. So actually, many of us who are my age, like in our 30s, 40s, also 20s, I think, were raised with this concept of as when I giving praise will help build self-confidence. And in order for a child to not be depressed, for a child to be optimistic, for a child to be happy, they need to have that self-confidence. And so they need to be praised. Now, what's interesting is the conversation is changing to this idea that if I give so much praise, I'm actually doing the opposite to my child. I'm hurting them. Why am I hurting them? Again, or hurting again is maybe a strong word. I used it, but we're not helping them. We're not helping them to grow, because now we understand that we want our children to grow into human beings, into their own human beings with their own minds, their own thoughts, their own opinions. That even though that they may grow up to be adults who disagree with us, we want them to know that actually that's okay. And that's a really hard thing to do as a parent when we're actually in the moment. But we want our children to grow up to be who they are, right? Because if we think to ourselves, and if there was any aspect of yourself that you struggled with as you grew up, okay, because you knew that an adult around you who you respected and valued would disagree with it, it would really be hard to come to terms with that part of yourself. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. It would be really hard to come to terms with that part of yourself and to wholly love yourself, right? And to fully appreciate yourself. And so that's what happened when we built this idea of I need to give lots of praise in order to build that self-confidence. So instead, where we're going to today is how can I build that self-confidence without offering praise, without praising who my child is, right? Because I praise who they are. Well, what if they don't believe that that's really who they are? B, what if who they are gets taken away from them, like the football, like you're such a good student. What I love about you is you're such a good student, but then your child gets an F in school. Well, then what? Right? You're such a good listener, but then what if your child gets to a point in their life where they're like, oh my gosh, an adult is telling me to do something. I know it's the wrong thing, but if I don't listen to them, what's going to happen? I'm looking for that praise. I'm looking for that external validation. And what happens is when we seek that out so strongly, it takes so much away from who we truly are. We want our children to grow into human beings who are so connected with themselves that they don't need that external validation. They don't need someone else to be praising them for what they've done, for who they are, because they know who they are. We don't want our children to grow into someone who's looking for someone else to tell us who they are. And that's what happens when we praise. That's what happens when we give compliments in order to build self-confidence. Now, here's a huge consciousness shift that I'm offering you. Okay. And this is all about our intention and our mindset around this topic. This is a game changer for me, and I hope it will be for you too, because I believe in acknowledging my children's accomplishments. I believe in letting them know what I see that they did. I see you. I see what you're doing. I see how hard you're working. I see how much you're accomplishing, right? And when I said I see how hard you're working, what came to my mind is this, like, I do remember that back when I was a child, right? Like, you might hear parents say, like, I don't care what the grade was, I just care that you put in all your effort, which is really nice. It is a really nice thought, but at the same time, the grade is really what mattered, right? The grade is really what matters. So I'm okay if you put in all your hard work into it. That's really all that I need and I want to see. But in school, the grade is what mattered. And what about if for the child, the hard work, like, we felt like it wasn't paying off? So let's get back to what I'm proposing and what I feel good about sharing with you. This idea that we want to acknowledge what our children are doing and not who they are. Okay? For example, I really noticed how much you put into your exercises on the football team. This is a skill and a trait that you will be able to carry with you for your whole life. So we don't make it about football. We make it about the effort that the child puts in. So they understand that if one day football's taken away from them, then the expertise, the skill is not being taken away. Who they are is not being taken away, because that effort that they put in on the football team, they can channel in any other area of their life, right? Or if your child, was a good listener at night, let's say they got into bed on time, they were super cooperative, and they did the whole bedtime routine, they got their homework done. Instead of, oh, good job, you got your homework done, good girl, you're such a good listener, we can try, I love how much you cooperated tonight, that was so helpful, how did that feel for you? Right? I really noticed that you put in such an effort to make the night smooth. And I believe that it wasn't just for me, it was for you too. How did that feel to go through the night and have it go so smoothly? Right? And so this is a really important piece as well, because I believe, like I said, in acknowledging, but I also believe in then asking our child, how did you feel when you were doing that? Right? And so this is the piece that was maybe missing, like with the homework example, like, with the studying for a test, like, it's not so important to me about the grade. It's important to me that you put in all that hard work. How did it feel for you? How did it feel to feel yourself put in all of that hard work? And if a child is going to say, it didn't feel good because then I feel like it was all for nothing because I got a bad grade, then you know what you need to focus in on with your kids. Then they are still seeking for that external, right? Because the conversation doesn't end there with, like, I'm so happy that you put in all the hard work, because what if that's not enough for your child? But if then we take it to the next level and we're sharing, well, I love how, the hard work you put in, and what do you feel about it? And they say, oh, it really feels like it was a waste of time because I didn't get the grade. Then you, as a parent, have the duty and the ability to take the conversation to the next level. Well, you know what? The grade didn't come. I wonder why that was. Let's figure out what it was, because it had nothing to do with the hard work that you put in. There must be another piece that's missing. And then as parents, we're setting up the stage and the space to fit all of those missing puzzle pieces in, to help our child to develop that internal strength, that growth, right? That connection with themselves, that inner knowing, that inner validation, that inner connection. And this is what we want our children to grow with, right? The praise is an issue if our child is seeking it externally, and it can function and thrive only with it. And what we want to do is to create a reality where our child is not looking to anyone else for that praise, where they're not being validated for who they are by what they're doing, right? But by how they're doing it. So it's a shift in our minds, right? It's our shift in our minds, because it's really easy and comes very naturally for all of us to just say whatever it is that we feel that we need to, that we want to say, right? It comes really naturally for us to just praise, to just like say like, oh, what you did well because it suited me. So I ask you, right, to look internally and try to notice why it is we praise. Is it for, whose sake is it for, and what is it suiting? Who is it suiting? Who is it making, feel better? Is it giving you something to tell your child as an encouragement? How, can you take those moments, right? And instead of praising them, like connect with them, create a conversation around it, develop it, right? Really use it as a moment to connect with your child, to allow what's inside of them to come out, not what you're reflecting from the situation. This is what I liked about it. Yeah, it's nice, and it's really nice, and children love to hear it. But what goes even deeper to helping our children to develop and to get stronger is asking them what they liked about it. What moved them? What helped them? What strengthened them? What about that made them feel good? And to then allow it to come from them is really strong and really powerful. Because that's what we want them to strengthen. We want them to strengthen their own, their values, their set of who they are, their connection with themselves. And that then creates an optimistic child, a child who is happy, who is hardworking, who can fall down and get back up, who can make a mistake and accept themselves anyway, right? Who fails and tries again, who can, walk down the street being 100% who they are, right? Without a thought or a question about what anyone is thinking about them or judging them, who feel safe and strong to speak in their own voice. So what do we do again? Rather than just saying like, calling our child out for what they did, right? We want to acknowledge what they did, let them know that we saw it. We can let them know what we thought about it. I thought that was really brave of you. How did you feel? And then ask them what they feel. Because it drives the point home. I really want to know, how do you feel about what just happened? What do you think about it? What did you gain from this experience? That's always a way to drive the point home further and to really make it last inside of our child. So there's nothing wrong with letting our children know how we're feeling about them, letting them know when they did something that we know was hard for them, or, complimenting them on their outfit. I love the way that you matched your shirt and your skirt. I love the way that you have your own style. I love the way that I love the way that you sat down and studied for your test. You knew you had to do it and you did it. That's wonderful. How do you feel about it? So I hope that this was clear, and I hope that this is helpful for you. Let me know if you have any questions or topics that you would like me to share here going forward, and I look forward to connecting with you all soon.